Hi, good morning, Globals. Happy Friday to you. So today I'm sitting in my balcony. Wanted to give you a different view this morning because we're finally feeling like it's spring. And out here I'm doing a little bit of reading, and I'm seeing, of course, you can't miss the news coming at you, which is COVID-19 and the vaccine. And the importance of a vaccine is that it helps develop antibodies for you able to fight off any kind of disease or pathogen that's coming into your system. And the reason I want to bring this up is not because I want to discuss COVID-19 on this video. It's because when you're talking about a vaccine, it's developed in order to fight off something, fight off a disease. The same thing goes with when we take a dose of criticism. When you take small doses of criticism and you learn how to fight it off, you build immunity against it. So in today's video, for this week's leadership tip, I want to discuss how we take our dose of criticism. What is criticism? What is the difference between criticism and feedback? And when to accept criticism and when to shut it out? And most importantly, 3 things to consider to build your immunity against criticism, against other people's negative opinion about you. So stay tuned. Hey, welcome back, Globals. And if you're new here, I'm Coach Belly, and I provide tips and advice to lead a more empowered life and inspire others to do the same. So let's jump right into today's topic of taking a dose of criticism and how we can become better leaders for it. So let's start with defining the term criticism. Simply put, criticism is an expression of disapproval of something, someone, some idea, simply based on your own perception, not necessarily facts. And it's not necessarily provided in a objective, caring way. It's just, here's my opinion, I'm right, you need to do what I'm telling you because I know that I'm right. That's kind of an example of criticism. Now, the difference between criticism and feedback or a critique, because sometimes people use the word, oh, I'm giving you a critique, not criticism. Or they use the words interchangeably. And they're definitely very different words. A critique is like constructive feedback. You're providing an analysis of the pros and the cons, the good and the bad, and you're taking your facts that you know, and you provide an analysis of, here's the conclusion I have, and let me share that with the individual, or share my idea about that specific idea, and tell you why I believe it's the way it is. And then there's a conversation where you're trying to help the individual improve based on your feedback. It's not an attack, and it's not done in a way where it's negative. So that's the difference between criticism and feedback, or a critique. So why is it that people become critical people? There's many reasons, and in psychology, one of the main reasons why people become very negative or critical about everything or different people, it's because they have developed self-defense mechanisms to protect their ego. Perhaps as kids, as they grew up, they were criticized by family members, maybe kids at school, some kind of experience that they had where they had to build a way to protect themselves from being hurt. So that's one of the major reasons why people become very negative and very critical people. It's also part of the environment. If you grew up in an environment where people around you are constantly criticizing you or criticizing other people, always judging others, you start to program your mind and your brain to behave in the same way. So there's different potential reasons why people are critical, and some more than others. So you can actually train your brain to change that thought pattern so you can be more objective. But for today's video, we're going to really talk about not so much, how to change, how to not be a critical person, but really about when do we accept criticism and when do we not accept criticism, and then how do we battle against that. So when do you accept criticism? Well, you never want to accept criticism, ever. What you do want to accept is feedback, a critique. And you want to consider, okay, what is being said, who is saying it, and what pieces of information am I going to take to learn from, to grow from. And so that's really the main criteria of when you accept criticism or you don't. You just don't accept it. You do take is the pieces of information that's going to help you grow and to become a better leader. That's what you take. So I'll give you an example of different situations where you can take feedback or not, and how you go about it. So for example, I had a friend one time came over last year and I was moving into my apartment, and I set my apartment up. She came over, she said, wow, I love your apartment, it's great, but something's not feng shui. It's like, I don't know, something about your living room. And I looked around and I'm like, you know, you're right. I like your ideas, and let's do that. So we rearranged the furniture. We were able to get that completed, and I was so happy with the result. And I'm really thankful for her feedback. And another situation where I was given feedback and I decided, well, I'm not going to take that feedback. It was actually a good dialogue with my colleague. He had an idea about how he wanted to work a case that we were working at work. I had a different idea, and at the end of the day I said, you know, well, thank you for your feedback, thanks for your idea, but I'm gonna go in this direction, or this is what I think. And there's times where I actually change my mind. So you have the power to pick and choose what to take and what not to take. That's really up to you. One example where you don't want to take any kind of feedback or criticism is when a person is just being completely negative and there's nothing constructive about what they're saying. There's no basis for it. So I had a situation with this woman that I was working with on a project. She wasn't my boss, she wasn't my coworker or one of my employees, but she was somebody who was working on a project with us, part of our cross-functional team. And she was constantly attacking me and attacking my teammates and the people that were on my employees. So she was constantly telling us, you're not good enough, this is not right, I want something different. She was constantly complaining and being so negative and critical that it was just too much. That to the point where I went to my boss and I said, hey, am I doing my job correctly? Are you okay? Are you good with the product that I'm providing and the way that I'm leading this project? And my boss said, you guys are doing an amazing job. It's great. I don't know why this person is criticizing you and your team. And as I started to think through and I started knowing what was going on around the organization, I realized this person was doing the same thing to different groups of people, and it was just the way she was. She just was very negative and looking for ways to make herself look good. She was deflecting her insecurities onto my team, onto me, and it wasn't right. So in that situation, you really want to observe that, hey, this person is not giving me any valuable feedback. It's all negative, and she doesn't really have any good intentions. So I'm not going to accept that. So I just wanted to give you a few examples of some of my personal experiences of how I take feedback, and just to give you some ideas of, okay, what situations do you want to work through when it comes to receiving some kind of criticism. So 3 things that I want to leave you with is, how do you become immune to criticism? How do you build your immunity? Well, the very first thing that I want to provide you advice on is, 1, don't pressure yourself to be perfect, and don't criticize yourself. So basically, if you're criticizing yourself and someone else is criticizing you, you're giving yourself a double dose of criticism. So we go back to the example of the vaccine. If they give you too much of the actual disease and the vaccine, if they give you too much of the vaccine, your body's not going to be able to handle that. So you got to give it small doses over time. And if you're giving yourself a dose of criticism daily in your own mind, and someone else is throwing that criticism on top of that, then you're overloading your brain, and you're overloading your emotions. And your body, your brain, and your emotions can only handle so much criticism. So really watch that, and really consider that point, that if you criticize yourself, and it seems like common sense, but common sense is not always common practice. So we have to understand that even though we may know these things, that yeah, we know we shouldn't criticize ourselves, but it's about not knowing it. Is how do we start to apply changing our behavior and changing our thinking so that we don't criticize ourselves. So second piece is determining where is the opinion or the criticism coming from? Who is the individual? What basis is this criticism or feedback coming from? So like the examples I gave a friend, a colleague, and one of my coworkers. And I had to analyze, well, who are the people that are providing me the feedback? how valuable is the feedback, and how much of it do I want to take, and from what point of view is that person coming from? Are they meaning well, or are they not meaning well? So you really have to consider, who do you want to accept the feedback from? You can't take things personally from every single person that has an opinion about you, because they're not, to be honest, they're not all important. What's important is who you think is important, and how you want to handle that situation, and what part you want to receive. The second piece, the last piece, is one of the hardest, I think one of the hardest steps is to try to put yourself in the shoes of the person who's criticizing you. Try to understand, well, why are they criticizing me? What are they trying to tell me? Maybe they're passionate about the subject. Maybe that's what they've known their entire life. Maybe this is your opportunity to educate them if they want to be educated. And bottom line, there may be something they're saying that may have a little bit of truth to it. So you may want to pick and choose the nuggets of wisdom that you want to utilize to help yourself grow and learn and be better for it, regardless of where the feedback is coming from. Or bottom line, if there's nothing really substantial about what they're saying, you can learn and grow just from simply the experience of being criticized and being able to handle it with grace and not letting it bother you. So one of my favorite authors is Don Miguel Ruiz, and he wrote the book The 4 Agreements. And one of the 4 agreements is not taking anything personally. So don't take anything personally. That's one of my favorite agreements in this book. And he said, what others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. So when you take those 3 tips into consideration, when you think about not criticizing yourself, understanding where the feedback is coming from, and learning from the experience of building your immunity against other people's opinions, then you prevent yourself from needless suffering. Suffering that there's no need for it. But what you can take from it is growth and strength as a leader, as a person, to move forward in whatever it is that you want to do in life. And don't let anyone tell you any different. So, what are you doing today to help you build immunity against criticism and other people's opinions? Type your comments below, let me know, or type in a heart and let me know that this video resonates with you and that you've learned something great from it that you can apply today. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a wonderful Friday, and we'll see you next time.